What is it about Pedro that everyone just loves to work with him, and what's the secret sauce, you know?
The special sauce. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's
Just ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together.
They're gonna be honest.
It's time. It's time for the reveal.
The truth reveal.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant actor.
Never really came to understanding the story.
But the first time I read the script, it was very hard for me to contain.
What if the actor hailed as Hollywood's most lovable leading man turned out to be the biggest liabilities a billion-dollar studio ever signed? What if behind the quirky smile, the viral memes, and the soft-spoken charm, there was someone quietly pulling the strings, steering a major superhero film off a cliff, all while pretending to be the savior? Buckle up, because the story of Pedro Pascal and the collapse of Marvel's Fantastic Four reboot is more than just behind-the-scenes drama. It's a masterclass in how one man's ego turned the MCU's greatest comeback into a total disaster. From the moment Marvel announced Pedro Pascal would play Reed Richards, fans were hyped. It was supposed to be Marvel's next big leap forward, a perfect blend of talent, star power, and comic book nostalgia. The internet exploded with excitement. Memes flooded Twitter. Stan accounts posted edits nonstop. Marvel had its next franchise face, but it didn't take long for things to go from excitement to chaos. Behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as Marvel made them seem. What started as excitement soon morphed into tension. According to multiple insiders, Pedro Pascal wasn't content just playing Reed Richards. He wanted to be Reed Richards. He wanted to control every word, every scene, every direction the film would take.
It's been a dream to join the MCU. The movie is called The Fantastic Four. I'll confess, I did all my stretching for
Whether they like it or not, they're never getting.
And instead of supporting a team effort, Pascal allegedly began rewriting the movie. Literally. He showed up to the table read not just with suggestions, but with a heavily marked up script. He had changed scenes, rewritten dialogue, and redirected character arcs, all centered around Reed Richards. Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss-Bachrach reportedly sat in stunned silence as Pascal recited his rewritten lines, changing the tone of the movie from a team-based adventure to a personal monologue about one man's trauma. And this wasn't some light suggestion. It was a full-on rewrite. Director Matt Shakman tried to push back, asking Pascal to stick to the original script, but Pascal allegedly refused. He argued, he debated, he shut others down, even cutting off his castmates mid-sentence. He reportedly told the director Omar, "If this is just gonna be another cookie-cutter Marvel flick, then I'm wasting my time." And with that, the damage was done. The cast walked out, not in anger, but in quiet disappointment. The chemistry was broken, the vision was shattered, and Marvel was left scrambling. This wasn't just one bad rehearsal. Insiders claim Pascal had been asserting creative control for weeks, even months before the table read. Costume teams received notes from him, camera angles were questioned, dialogue scenes meant for other characters were reportedly changed to highlight Reed Richards. One moment that was originally meant to show Sue Storm's leadership was allegedly rewritten to become a reflection of Reed's internal struggles. Slowly but surely, everything was being reshaped to fit Pedro's personal vision. What makes it worse? The press interviews. Fans began noticing cracks even before the movie started shooting. During promo tours, Pascal constantly redirected questions to his own character. What was supposed to be fun interviews turned into deep lectures about trauma, symbolism, and how superheroes need to reflect real-world problems. At first, it seemed quirky, but soon, fans noticed how often he interrupted co-stars, how visibly uncomfortable the others looked, how Joseph Quinn joked that Pascal won't leave me alone, while Vanessa Kirby kept a tight smile that never reached her eyes. One viral moment showed Pascal cutting off Vanessa mid-answer to go on a tangent. Kirby leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, while Joseph awkwardly smiled. That clip alone set social media on fire. TikToks, Reddit threads, and Twitter breakdowns dissected every second, every side eye, every uncomfortable glance. It was no longer subtle. It was a pattern. So what did Marvel do? They panicked. Executives launched an internal damage control plan. Step 1, Blame scheduling delays on the actors' strike and pretend everything was fine. Step 2, quietly replace the cast using the multiverse loophole. Introduce new actors as variants and make it look like it was planned all along. Step 3, sideline Pedro Pascal without making it obvious. Limit his influence, cut his screen time, give him background roles in other properties, but keep him far away from the spotlight. And here's the most telling part. While Marvel scrambled, the original cast members were thriving. Vanessa Kirby signed onto a new Christopher Nolan film. Joseph Quinn landed a major Warner Brothers deal. Eben Moss-Backrack started talks with A24 for a lead role in a psychological drama. They didn't tweet, they didn't bash Marvel, they didn't say a word, but their silence said everything. Pedro Pascal, meanwhile, began posting cryptic captions on Instagram, moody photos, vague reflections, captions that screamed misunderstood genius. He didn't address the controversy. He didn't apologize. He leaned into the image of the tortured artist, hoping fans would rally around him. And to some extent they did, but others, they started asking tough questions. Was the charming, quirky Pedro we all fell in love with just a performance? Was the Hollywood nice guy just a mask hiding a controlling, self-centered persona? According to insiders, that's exactly what many on the production team began to believe. The man who was once hailed as the internet's favorite actor was now being described as domineering, difficult, and dismissive. And it wasn't just about one film. Marvel insiders admitted this wasn't just a production issue, it was a brand issue. Marvel had built its empire on teamwork, consistency, and tight storytelling. And now, one star's behavior had thrown a $200 million project into chaos before a single frame had been shot. It wasn't just a creative failure, it was a collapse. Marvel's leadership reportedly tried to bring the cast back one last time. A private Zoom call was arranged, just the cast, the director, and Pedro. A chance to reset. But what happened? Pedro opened the meeting with a 20-minute speech. He didn't ask questions, he didn't apologize, he lectured again about trauma, symbolism, identity, and why his version of Reed Richards was necessary. When Vanessa Kirby finally tried to offer her perspective, Pascal allegedly cut her off. It's not about hierarchy, Vanessa, it's about message. That one line shut everything down. Joseph Quinn left the call. Vanessa followed. The reboot was over. This whole ordeal should have been Marvel's next chapter. Instead, it became a warning story, a warning about what happens when studios hand too much control to actors who don't know how to collaborate. A warning about letting popularity blind leadership to real problems. And most of all, a warning that even the most beloved star can become the biggest problem. And as the dust settles, the question still hangs in the air. How did this happen? How did one of Hollywood's most promising projects unravel so fast? The answer lies in the pattern. Pedro Pascal didn't just disagree with creative choices, he dismantled the entire process. He didn't just want to play a character, he wanted to redefine the story around himself. And while some might argue that's passion, the evidence shows it was something else entirely: control. There's a difference between offering feedback and hijacking a film, between collaboration and dominance. Pascal allegedly crossed that line over and over again. What's worse? His actions not only derailed a major movie, but also damaged trust. Trust between cast members, between actors and directors, and between fans and studios. Marvel now faces the uphill task of rebuilding not just the Fantastic Four, but their credibility. And where does that leave Pedro Pascal? Still a big name, still beloved by many, but also now a question mark. Can he be trusted to lead a franchise? Can he work within a team? Or is he becoming too polarizing to be bankable? As Hollywood watches this fallout, one thing is clear: reputation matters. And once that curtain is pulled back, once fans and insiders see what's really happening behind the scenes, it's hard to unsee it. The Fantastic Four reboot may never recover from this. And Pedro Pascal may never be seen the same way again. So the next time you see a flashy casting announcement, a viral edit, or a charming press interview, just remember, what happens behind the camera can change everything. This was supposed to be Marvel's redemption arc. Instead, it became Pedro Pascal's most unexpected plot twist, and not in a good way. Stay tuned, because if this is the end of the Pedro Pascal chapter in the MCU, it might just be the beginning of Hollywood finally asking, Is star power worth the cost? As the fallout spread beyond Marvel Studios, something even more telling began to unfold. Pedro Pascal's pattern wasn't exclusive to this one production. Behind closed doors, other industry professionals started coming forward quietly, echoing similar concerns from past sets. Whispers turned into cautious conversations. Suddenly, producers and directors were revisiting old projects, looking at behavior they once dismissed as eccentric and reconsidering it under a more critical lens. Several behind-the-scenes reports emerged from earlier productions, painting a picture of an actor whose intensity could sometimes cross lines, not in a physical or policy-breaking way, but in the way that slowly chips away at trust, morale, and collaboration. One assistant director from a previous TV series described Pascal as incredible when the cameras roll, but a whirlwind when they don't. Another crew member described a recurring theme. Pedro insisted on adding last-minute changes, even when the clock was ticking and everyone else was ready to wrap. In one instance from a smaller film, Pascal allegedly held up production for over an hour during a shoot, not because of technical issues, but because he was rethinking his character's emotional motivation in a scene that had already been locked weeks earlier. According to multiple people involved are the moment turned from thoughtful to disruptive. It wasn't about making the scene better anymore, it was about proving a point. And this behavior, as one veteran script supervisor put it, became his brand of chaos. The real issue wasn't just the disruption, it was the inconsistency. People didn't know what version of Pedro Pascal they were getting day to day. On Monday, he might be warm, collaborative, even playful. On Tuesday, he might be closed off, hyper-focused, or dismissive of ideas that didn't come from him. That unpredictability made it harder for teams to function. You weren't just walking into a scene, you were walking into an emotional guessing game. Marvel, known for running a tight ship, had never encountered such volatility at this scale within its own ecosystem. The studio was built on carefully coordinated ensemble projects where no one actor, no matter how famous, could dictate the direction of a billion-dollar franchise. But now, they were facing a PR and structural crisis that challenged that foundation. This controversy forced Disney's executive team to hold a private series of meetings focused solely on future hiring practices. According to one insider close to the studio, new guidelines were discussed for vetting actors, not just based on talent or popularity, but on adaptability, history with ensemble work, and respect for creative boundaries. The Fantastic Four fiasco had become a turning point not just for Marvel, but for the way Hollywood may approach casting moving forward. And as for the fan response, at first many rallied behind Pedro, unsure whether the reports were exaggerated or taken out of context. But over time, as more clips, quotes, and behind-the-scenes leaks came out, even his most loyal supporters began asking questions. The overly philosophical interviews, the dominance during press tours, and the awkward energy that fans couldn't quite explain at the time, all of it started making sense in hindsight. Fan forums filled with lengthy debates from Reddit to YouTube comment sections. People started pulling clips from old interviews where Pascal joked about rewriting scripts in his head or taking creative liberties. What once felt like harmless charm now seemed like red flags. One viral post asked, is Pedro Pascal the next cautionary tale of ego in Hollywood? Thousands of likes later, the conversation had shifted completely. Even media outlets began treading carefully. Entertainment journalists, once eager to celebrate his every move, now approached Pascal-related news with hesitation. Major outlets ran soft headlines about Fantastic Four creative differences, while smaller independent media dug deeper. Some even published anonymous testimonials from those who had worked with Pascal in the past, all sharing a similar theme: brilliant actor but exhausting collaborator. Marvel's silence on the issue spoke volumes. Despite the chaos, the studio never made a public statement addressing what had happened. No official announcements about recasting, no clarification on the project's future, and certainly no naming names. Instead, the company allowed into deflection. Hype around other projects like Deadpool 3 and Avengers. Secret Wars was ramped up, drowning out Fantastic Four updates entirely. But fans noticed. Every time Marvel dropped a teaser or made an announcement, the comments were flooded with the same questions. Where's the Fantastic Four update? Is Pedro Pascal still involved? Are we just pretending the reboot never happened? The silence became louder than any statement Marvel could have made. Meanwhile, other studios began to rethink their own potential partnerships with Pascal. Rumors swirled about projects that once had him attached, quietly moving forward with other actors. A major streaming platform that once marketed a drama series around Pascal reportedly rebranded the show, pulling his face from the forefront of the campaign. What was once considered a golden age for Pedro Pascal now seemed like it was on pause. He wasn't being blacklisted, far from it, but doors were no longer swinging open with the same enthusiasm. The industry was watching, observing, waiting to see what he would do next. Would he issue a statement, apologize, clarify, or would he continue to post vague captions and cryptic photos while sidestepping the core of the controversy? Surprisingly, his response came through absence. Pascal pulled back from media. Fewer interviews, fewer red carpets, fewer appearances. Some saw it as damage control, others saw it as a retreat. But regardless of interpretation, one thing was clear: he was no longer the untouchable darling of Hollywood. It's a strange thing to watch someone go from universally loved to professionally questioned in the span of months, and yet that's exactly what happened. The Pedro Pascal who once carried The Mandalorian with quiet strength was now being dissected, analyzed, and evaluated, not for his on-screen talent, but for his off-screen decision-making. And this wasn't just about one movie, it was about trust, about the ability to play within a team, about respecting the story as much as the spotlight. Hollywood isn't short on talent, but it's desperately in need of leaders who can share that talent without hijacking it. Marvel's next move, they're reportedly restructuring the entire Fantastic Four project from the ground up. New cast, new director, new tone. The studio wants to wipe the slate clean. Insiders say the working title has even been changed internally, a symbolic move to distance the film from its previous version. It's no longer a reboot, it's a reboot of the reboot. And as the franchise resets, the legacy of what happened lingers. Industry panels reference the situation as a case study in franchise management. Casting directors now talk about Pascal-proofing projects, a slang term for ensuring no one actor can derail an ensemble piece. Agents are having tougher conversations with clients about boundaries and team dynamics. In a way, Pedro Pascal has unintentionally become a landmark, an example of how quickly the narrative can change, of how the same traits that made someone beloved can, under the wrong spotlight, become the very things that push people away. So where does he go from here? There's talk of a smaller indie film comeback, perhaps something quieter and stripped down, a way to recalibrate, prove himself again, and remind people of the talent that put him on the map in the first place. But whether that reset is genuine or just a rebrand remains to be seen. Because at the end of the day, fans remember, studios remember. And reputations, once cracked, are rarely ever fully restored. As for the Fantastic Four, Marvel is betting big that fans will give them another shot, that with a new team and a new direction, the movie can still become the hit it was meant to be. But behind the scenes, the lessons learned from Pedro Pascal's involvement won't be forgotten anytime soon. This isn't just a story about one actor's ego, it's about a system that allowed it to fester. It's about how a studio desperate for a win overlooked warning signs. It's about how even the most beloved stars can become the center of controversy when they stop being part of the solution and start becoming the problem. And most of all, it's a reminder, in a world where image can be manufactured and charm can go viral, it's the off-camera behavior that eventually tells the real story. Because once the mask slips, even just a little, it's almost impossible to put it back on.